A jail breaking. An inmate released early tells us about the overcrowding that's letting more out today. We ask a Senate candidate about ducking debates, and he complains about the sitting senator being the slippery one. Well, guess who else we found today? Anti-vaxxers come back to the Capitol, with some telling us this issue has them joining a new political party. And picture a crisis.
Right now, our city is in a state of emergency.
We see a reason for optimism. Next.
The Jefferson County Jail has more sudden, unexpected releases than the Suncor refinery. Another 27 inmates got out early today. The sheriff there blames budget issues and overcrowding. An inmate who got out early, separate from those mass releases, gave our Mark Salinger an idea of what it's like on the inside.
The lock on this door leads to a home.
Happy to be home.
From January 14th to February 9th, Samuel Allen called the Jefferson County Jail home. 26 days inside a jail constricted by budget cuts and overcrowding.
During meals, some people had to actually sit on their bunks to eat because there wasn't enough tables or seats available.
An entire floor of the jail was closed and staff was laid off at the beginning of the year as budget cuts set in. Allen says inmates feel the impact.
They would come in and they would be sleeping in what's called a boat, which is apparatus for sleeping on the floor. And so it at times got way overcrowded.
Allen will be the first to tell you he's had his fair share of run-ins with the law. 14 arrests from DUI to felony trespassing to felony stalking.
The last 32 years of my life have been riddled with conflicts with the law.
Allen got out just 26 days after he began serving his 60-day sentence for driving drunk. He never thought he'd get out early himself.
They told me to check the kiosk for my out date. The guard did. And I said, why? And he said, because I believe it's changed.
The Jeffco Sheriff's Office says Allen was released early for good behavior and credit for time served. He was not part of the early release program started to make space in the jail. Allen doesn't care. He's free. Also, earlier than he expected.
Like it was the 4th of July and Christmas at the same time. It was like, this is unbelievable. Thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Now, so far this year, the Jeffco Sheriff's Office says 154 inmates have been released early through the early release program. Now, it's important to note that everyone released through that program must serve at least 50% of their sentence, and no one who's been released has committed a crime of violence against another person. Kyle, it's all crimes like DUI or theft or burglary, that kind of thing.
So you'll hear some folks in public office say they're looking to reduce jail populations. That's not the sheriff's goal necessarily here.
The sheriff says that they don't want to release these inmates. They say that it could look like it's undermining the criminal justice system, but they have no other choice at this point to try and get the inmate population down.
All right, Mark Salinger, good to have you on next.
There you go.
Former Governor John Hickenlooper signed, sealed, delivered, dropped off the signatures to make the Democratic primary ballot for a Senate race today. He faces a field full of more progressive candidates, Democrats who ding him for dodging debates and forums, just sitting on his fat lead in the polls, waiting for them to be pushed aside. That box didn't look too heavy. We asked Hickenlooper about that today, about dodging forums, and we got served a side of whataboutism.
The real question, and this is the appropriate time, why has Cory Gardner not done a town hall meeting or really been available to the general public in a couple of years?
So Hickenlooper clearly wants to look past the Democratic primary to the general election against Republican Senator Cory Gardner. But in all fairness, Gardner is pretty elusive. We've talked about that before. Gardner ignores our interview requests, so we have to search him out on sidewalks, at airports, at business luncheons. And today, Gardner held an event at a school in Centennial. Select media outlets were notified and invited. We were not, but we are in the business of figuring stuff out. So politics guy Marshall Zellinger just showed up anyway to ask your elected senator a couple rare questions.
It was cordial, too. There was no animosity from us just showing up. Gardner was at the Cherry Creek Innovation Campus. That's not a full-time high school. The students there go to other high schools and do part-time instruction on things like engineering, hospitality and tourism, and healthcare. And Senator Gardner held a round table at a rectangular table, talking with students who volunteered to be there, most of them with a focus on healthcare. He talked with them about mental health support, including his push that we've covered here on Next to create 988 hotline, similar to 911, but for mental health emergencies. The Rocky Mountain Crisis Services believes that will cost $750,000 additional dollars to staff a 988 phone line.
That's why it's so incredibly important that we have people in the pipeline in our healthcare systems that are receiving the kinds of skills and tools that you are.
We did not want to ignore why he was there today, but being there also gave us the chance to talk about tomorrow's visit with President Trump. Would anything cause Gardner's support of the president to waver? He listed off a number of positives and finished with, quote, "I'm not always going to agree, but there are certain things we have done together to make this state a better place." That then led to this question about his campaign for Senate. You've never heard from you if you thought asking foreign assistance is illegal or unconstitutional. Would you do so in your campaign?
It's never okay for a foreign government to interfere with our elections. It's never okay for that, and I've certainly made a lot of points about that, introducing legislation to make sure that other countries don't do that. But if you're talking about impeachment, that was a policy issue that we can't impeach over a policy issue.
But in your campaign, would you do that? Would you ask foreign
absolutely
assistance?
not. In fact, I've said I would go immediately to the FBI if there was any such an issue that we thought was coming up.
No, because it's illegal or because it's unconstitutional?
Well, because if you look at what's happening, look what Russia wants to do. They want to destabilize our institutions. They want to decrease the trust of our institutions. And that goes to the to part of it. And so we have to do everything we can to protect the integrity of our institutions and the elections.
But would you put a label on it? Illegal, unconstitutional?
Yeah. I guess I don't understand what you mean.
If you were asking for foreign assistance or foreign assistance,
I wouldn't do that. It's
offer...
wrong. It's wrong. I wouldn't do it.
Wrong. We didn't get an answer on illegal or unconstitutional. So about those town halls. I asked the senator, he seemed engaged with the student event. Will we see that in a public setting, whether it's in the Front Range or rural Colorado? He talked about being at an employee town hall today with hundreds of people. But Kyle, you know, we're asking about public invite events, and with the election coming up, it's bound to happen. And he said he could do it without getting shouted down. We'll just see if he does.
It's curious that he would say that, because I think people would assume that a lot of Democrats would come and would shout him down. And some people may think that that's a fair reason to avoid town halls. He definitely prefers the small, more scripted settings where folks don't know that he's there unless they're, say, an investigative reporter like yourself.
I would like to see a town hall situation where he could engage with people back and forth without it becoming a fiasco event, where it's something like what we saw with those students. Wishful thinking. Yeah, a productive political discussion maybe. Something like that.
That would be nice. Thank you, Marshall. There is a Coloradan right by President Trump's side in his re-election campaign. Jenna Ellis, a former constitutional law professor from Colorado Christian University. She's now working as President Trump's senior legal advisor. Ellis returned to Next today. She's in town for the president's big rally with Senator Gardner tomorrow. Let me ask you about President Trump's prospects for winning Colorado. So his net approval in Colorado has gone down 11 points since he was elected. He's about 10 points underwater in approval here now. How does he convince more Coloradans that he deserves re-election?
Well, I think Colorado is a very competitive state, and Brad Parscale, our campaign manager, is also very convinced of that. And I think that if you see the overall national approval rating, he's just continuing to grow there. And for people in Colorado, I think conservatives especially are really excited and enthusiastic that he's actually coming back to Colorado tomorrow for the rally.
Do you think that there are Coloradans and Americans generally who don't care for the president personally, but will just vote simply on the strength of the economy?
Probably, and I think that that's one of the wonderful designs in our Constitution, is that we, the voter, get to decide what matters to us. And that's why, President Trump listed in his State of the Union address all of his accomplishments, and that spoke to everyone. I mean, what matters to you most significantly might be something that differs from what matters to me and my family, but at the same time, that's why our founders said it's a pursuit of happiness.
Republican Senator Cory Gardner, he's been an unwavering ally of the president. Was there ever any doubt on Team Trump that that's where Gardner would be at the end of the day? There's a lot of chatter in Colorado.
Not at all. I think that there was a lot of chatter among people here and people who were just concerned overall, what the vote would be. But, Cory has absolutely been 100% with this president.
Last question, kind of on a more personal level. I know that I personally have benefited greatly in my career when colleagues have taken me aside and been like, hey, you don't want to do it like that. Or this thing you said, that really was the wrong thing to say. And working for the president, is he interested in feedback like that? Do you see him recalibrate his approach based on feedback like that?
Oh, he asks for opinions all the time. I mean, he calls me up all the time and asks opinions on things, and he is just the most kind and genuine person. And I think he does take that feedback very seriously.
Ellis and I also discussed President Trump saying recently that he can meddle in Justice Department investigations. You'll see that in our full unedited conversation on the Next YouTube channel. It was the 10th largest city in Colorado at the time, and it grew up almost overnight. Grew at a rate that puts our modern-day growing pains to shame. Shame is a very good word for what happened and how we remember it today. So the government came calling for patriotic Americans in southeast Colorado to sell their land to Uncle Sam. Rancher after rancher refused, 13 in all. When they wouldn't sell, the government just took their land, condemned it. Only one person voluntarily sold his land to the War Relocation Authority, the land that became the 10th largest city in Colorado almost overnight, as soon as the government started bringing in trainloads of people. Most of them were Americans. That did not matter. They looked like their ancestors who had come from Japan, and it was 1942, and we were at war. And Amache, Colorado's instant city, existed solely to hold those Americans and their neighbors against their will. This is Remembrance Day for the February 19th that President Roosevelt ordered the internment. We remember the shame. I hope we also remember that almost all of the Coloradans called on to give up their land to jail their fellow citizens refused.
The vaccination rate in this room at the Capitol is probably quite low.
Even if you're homeless, you can still make a mark in society.
Without a place to stay, they have found a place to create. And that's next.
If you see a crowd at the Colorado's Capitol these days, there's a good chance that all those people are there to talk about vaccines. Hundreds signed up to testify today, preparing to wait hours to do it. Our Anusha Roy was down there. Anusha, the lengths that people will go to come out and talk about vaccination these days gives you some idea about the passion.
Yeah, there were so many people signed up, in the hundreds today, that people knew that they were going to have to rearrange their lives because they were going to be stuck at the Capitol for hours just waiting for their chance to talk for a few minutes in front of lawmakers. This year, the Capitol had to set aside 4 overflow rooms. Some people were just posting up in the hallways trying to eat their lunch while they were waiting. Under this bill, parents or guardians would have to submit paperwork to a school that their kids' vaccinations are up to date, or they could fill out an exemption form for religious or personal beliefs signed off by a provider who gives vaccines. They can also watch an educational video created by the state in addition to filling out the form.
I had to find a babysitter for my 3 kids, schedule pickup at school, drop off, all of that, drive in the snow.
I had to reschedule a bunch of just work-related meetings, and I'm actually missing a work-related seminar that I coordinate.
So parents with kids who have medical reasons that can't get vaccinated fill out a different form. Now, supporters of this proposed bill say that this is just a way to standardize the paperwork, but those against it say it's making it harder for them to make their own choices. One woman even told us that she changed her political beliefs over this bill.
I switched from being an unaffiliated voter to a Republican voter because the Republicans are way more about freedom than I recognized before.
We certainly respect their beliefs, especially if they have religious beliefs, but we feel it's our duty to keep their kids healthy.
My concern is for the individuals that can't be vaccinated, that are immunocompromised, like people that have weakened immune systems and can't get vaccines.
I've spent 11 years every single day looking into vaccines. I've had discussions with many professionals, natural health practitioners, medical practitioners.
People were testifying into the evening, which means, Kyle, at this point, we don't know if the bill is passing out of committee yet because they have to hear what everyone has to say first before making any of those decisions.
Anusha, it's interesting. Do we have, no, they can't show me, forget it. We're just going to go to weather. Okay. God bless. All right, thanks, Anusha.
Oh, you got it.
Just a little weather. What's a little light snow at this point, right? We've had more days with snow this month than sunshine, and the light snow falling in the city tonight, while slowing traffic, will be ending by about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And actually, travel on I-70 really hasn't been that awful today, considering the snow and freezing rain. 21 our high today. The average is 47. This band of snow is dropping to the south and will intensify in southern Colorado, where a winter weather advisory remains in effect through 5 a.m. The advisories continue out into Burlington and up north into the North Platte area for 2 to 5 inches of snow. Denver's got 1 to 2 inches of snow forecast for tonight, with again that snow ending during the wee hours of the morning, and that's when temperatures are really going to fall into the single digits. But you will wake up to sunshine tomorrow, although it's not going to be a terribly warm day. Tonight, light snow, 1 to 2 inches, are low at 8. Tomorrow we have sunshine and a high of 35, a nice warming trend right into the weekend. Sunshine in 50s for Friday and Saturday, chance for snow on Sunday and then again on Tuesday. So a very nice looking weekend coming up, but then the pattern gets interesting again the first part of next week.
They're hoping to simply get our attention.
We need more people aware of what is happening on our streets every day when there are thousands of individuals out in the streets.
It's a challenge to a city that loves art and says it loves people. Next.
We know there is no simple solution to the issue of homelessness, yet Colorado is chipping away in a slew of small ways. Tonight, a trip to an art studio that thinks it can be part of the solution.
Our brothers and sisters on the street that may not have a mailbox are still our neighbors. They may not have a standard roof over their head, but they live in this community and they contribute to this community too. You're right now sitting in our community studio at Redline Contemporary Art Center. This space initially was opened for artists experiencing homelessness.
It's like Nicki Minaj says, I want that empire, I want that.
Charles, right here? Yeah. Charles is one of our artists that's been with us for many years.
Times have been tough, and I found myself homeless. And I mean, I've been there when a person was woken up in the middle of the night. They jumped out of their sleeping bag and started throwing fists, knocking people to the ground. And that was a homeless guy doing it to homeless people. It can be tough.
Who better to talk about these kind of issues than those who are actually out there every day?
There's been people who come up to me and said, oh, I really love that painting, but I don't have any money. Well, do you have a home? Do you have a wall that you can put this on? And that's the only qualification that I have in order to give them the artwork, is that they have a place where they can keep it safe.
With the artwork finding a home and the artist not necessarily having one, that artwork can serve as a reminder to those that purchase that work that there are people out there that still need our help.
Because I had the studio space here at the Redline to help me my first year here in Denver, I was able to create 100+ paintings, and I was showing in the Denver Art Museum and the Colorado State Capitol within the first year.
Wow.
Even if you're homeless, you can still make a mark in society, and you can still advance within your field. And positive energy is worth so much.
Yes, it is. You know, all the snow lately has made it really tough to walk our goats. That and your feedback, which includes my favorite word, hack, coming up. The most Colorado thing we saw today is just an ordinary daily walk. Our viewer Teresa spotted this in Leadville. Just some guy out, he's got his dogs and his goat, as one does. And the other gentleman with the sick beard appears to be taking their photo. That's fantastic. What's the most Colorado thing you saw today? Email us photos, next@9news.com's email. Give us a shout with the hashtag HeyNext. And Laura Neal wrote to us today and said, I once saw a guy running through downtown Denver, dog on a leash in one hand, turtle in the other. I struggled with this because for the longest time I thought the turtle was on the leash, and then if they're running, the turtle would just be dragging and bouncing along. But I think maybe the guy was holding the turtle. I don't know. Speaking of getting dragged, Mark says Marshall's a political hack, asking Gardner the question like he did on impeachment. Mark, come on. Name calling is easy. Conversations are hard. Write us an email. Give us a call. Let's talk.